Oh, hello everybody, and welcome back once again to Kaju Samyuzang Edinburgh. Wherever you are in the world, whatever time of day it is, it's Buddha Dharma time. So we're going to carry on with the 4 preliminary foundations, the third of which is karma, cause and effect. And this is the second session, the second and last session of this. So I hope you've been managing to reflect and work with the first part of it, and so we'll carry on with the second. But before we do that, let's say the introductory prayers, starting with the refuge prayer to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. I'll say it in English once first, and then we can say it in the Tibetan phonetics twice, so making 3 times in all. In the Buddha, Dharma, and the noblest Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. Through the virtue generated by the practice of generosity and other virtues, may I achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. O Sanje Chotang Suji Chonam La Changchu Padu Dani Chapsunji Dagi Jinso Jipe Sonamji Dwala Penchir Sanjay Ruparsho Sanjay Chotang Suji Chonamla Changchu Badu Dani Chapsunchi Dagi Jinso Jipe Sanamji Dwala Penchir Sanjay Ruparsho. And now the supplication to the root Lama. Glorious, precious root Lama, above my head on a lotus moon seat, you care for me with great kindness. Please bestow the siddhis of body, speech, and mind. And now the Vajradhara prayer, the lineage prayer. Great Vajradhara Tilonaro Marpamila Dhamma Lord Gampopa, knower of the 3 times omniscient Karmapa, holders of the 4 elder and 8 younger lineages. De Kantaklung and the Salpa, glorious Drugpa, and so forth, masters of the profound path of Mahamudra, to the Dakpo instruction lineage, the peerless protectors of wanderers. Kaju Lamas, I supplicate you, I uphold your lineage. Grant the blessings of your liberating lives. Just as revulsion is taught to be the legs of meditation, this meditator clings not to food and riches, and has severed the ties to this life. Grant your blessings for detachment from honor and gain. Just as devotion is taught to be the head of meditation, this meditator constantly prays to the Lama, who opens the vault of pith instructions. Grant your blessings for uncontrived devotion to Wellforth. Just as non-distraction is taught to be the body of meditation, this meditator simply remains without altering the fresh essence of whatever thought arises. Grant your blessings for parting from the concept of meditation. Just as thought is taught to be in essence Dharmakaya, for this meditator unhindered manifestation dawns. Nothing whatsoever dawning, as whatever may be. Grant your blessings to realize inseparable samsara nirvana. May I never in future lives part from authentic lamas and embracing ever the glory of Dharma. May I perfect the qualities of the levels and paths and thus swiftly attain the state of Vajradhara. Paden Sawe Lama Rinpoche Dagi Chio Pende de Shukla Katrin Chimpo Gone Jisungte Kusung Tuchi Ngudrup Sautu So. Okay, so now let's continue with the four foundations and especially the one of karma, cause and effect. So we're going to recite the text of it, the root text, and before we get to the karma, cause and effect, remember we start with the first one, on precious human life, and then death and impermanence, and then karma. So I'll say it in English first, and then we'll say it in the Tibetan, so it's maintaining the link to the lineage. So the first one is the difficulty of getting a fully endowed human life. The first meditation topic concerns the precious human life endowed with every freedom and asset. It is difficult to get and can be easily destroyed. So now is the time to make it meaningful. Tangpo gomcha dalcho rinchendi, topka jikla tare tanyurcha. And the second, death and impermanence. Secondly, the universe and everything that lives therein is impermanent, particularly the lives of beings, which are like water bubbles. The time of death is uncertain, and when you die, you will become a corpse. Dharma will help you at that time. Therefore, practice it diligently now. Nipa nachu tamche mitagching, gusu droe seso jovotra. Namchi chame jitseri rorujor, tela chichi penche tsumpe drup. And now karma, actions and their consequences. Thirdly, after your death, you will have to experience your own karma, having no degree of control over what happens. So give up harmful actions. All your time should be spent in the practice of virtue. Thinking this way, evaluate your life daily. Sumpa jitse rangwang minduwar, leni dagir chachi dikpapang, gewe chawe tatu darwacha, shesam ninre rangju nielatak. So, here we are with the last part of the karma, cause and effect. So, the main things that we studied in the first part were the root causes, which of course are in the mind. And as I said last time, that it is so important to really go into that, because that's where all the actions, karma, remember, means actions, but all the actions originate in the mind. That's why we've spent quite a bit of time doing that. So now we're going to move on to the actions themselves. Of course, there's many, many different kinds of actions. But, they still do, all of them do originate in our mind. So if our mind is beset by afflictions, or you could say the darkness of ignorance, that will result in the corresponding type of actions. So that's why we really have to always be, continue to be watchful about our mind and the kleshas. The kleshas is the Tibetan word for mind poisons or afflictions or wrong ways of seeing. Because as long as there are kleshas, then there's going to be suffering, there's going to be problems with our actions. If there's no kleshas, then there'll be no negative karma. So, or painful results from our actions. So that's why it's very important to always bear that in mind. But now let's look at the type of actions themselves, the ones that we should avoid, and the ones that we should adopt. So the good ones as well as the negative ones. But first we'll talk about the negative ones. We always do that first because these are the obstacles that we need to clear. So the negative actions, there are 10 main types of actions. They're sort of classified into 10 main types. And they're divided into those of the body, those of the speech, and those of the root causes in the mind. So the 10 are divided into 3 non-virtuous actions of the body, 4 non-virtuous actions of speech, and 3 non-virtuous actions of mind. Of course, these are the way that they've been sort of categorized, but there's many sort of subdivisions, but these are the kind of headings, if you like, that the smaller sub-actions come under. So the first one is that of killing. Killing a living being. Whether it's a human being, whether it's an ant. There's no big or small in karma. Killing is killing. Of course, the consequences are somewhat different, depending on how serious the killing is, or the severity of it, or the length of it, or the amount of it. All of these things will reflect in the result. But basically, killing is to be avoided. It's harmful. It's harmful not only to the person or thing that you're killing, but it's also harmful for the person that's doing the killing. This is why karma is such an important thing to study, because I think a lot of times people just don't understand the consequences, and that they are too, if you're going to be doing something harmful, the backlash is going to come and hit you. That's what the negative karma is. It's not by chance. Karma doesn't happen by chance. It's unmistaken. So you might get away with it in terms of worldly life. You might kill somebody and you never get found out, and you've sort of got away with it in the worldly way of seeing. But you don't get away with it in terms of your karma, because it's a law, like gravity is a law. There's no running away from it. So that's the first one, is that of killing. The second one is that of stealing, and all types of stealing. So it might be something huge that is very obvious, like you could maybe go and burgle somebody's house and take all their possessions. That's very obvious. But it's also even the more subtle types of things, like, for example, somebody that you know and you think, oh, well, I'll just take that for now because they won't mind, but you haven't got their permission to take it. You're kind of presuming that you have it. So that is classified as stealing. You either need their permission or you don't take it. So anything that involves taking another's wealth or possessions or anything that belongs to them without them knowing, without them being aware of it. And it also includes things like embezzling, like in terms of, if say you're working in some kind of job that you can sort of fill the books, that's also stealing, isn't it? So it's not quite, you might be hidden for quite a long time, but you're still in that mindset of taking what isn't yours, taking what doesn't belong to you, and doing it in obviously with very selfish motives, because why else would you do it? I mean, there may be other motives. You may be doing it for somebody else, but it's still stealing. If you're doing it for somebody else, there are always different motivations. But what we're going to do is go through this list of things that are to be avoided, and then we'll look at the permutations of kind of severity and stuff. So yes, anything that you take in an underhanded manner, through embezzling or cheating or playing tricks on somebody or outright stealing and burglary, theft, pickpocketing, you name it, taking anything that doesn't belong to you in a deceitful way. Then the third one of body, the negative unvirtuous actions of body, is that of sexual misconduct. Now, there are two ways of looking at this. For example, if you happen to be a monk or a nun, then you will have vows which are more sort of comprehensive, let's say, than there would be for a lay person. For example, as a monk or a nun, you would have a vow of celibacy. As a lay person, I mean, you can have a vow of celibacy, you can have anything you want, but in terms of vows, but usually you don't have a vow of celibacy, but you could have a vow against having some kind of sexual misconduct. So what do we mean by sexual misconduct is really, for example, having sex with those who are married to somebody else. They have marriage vows after all, or you may have marriage vows, so breaking those vows, but also even just somebody else's partner. They may not be married, but it's somebody else's partner, that kind of thing. Or you could be having sex at the wrong time, or maybe with someone who's ill or heavily pregnant or something like that, just not the correct time, or in the wrong place, for example in a temple or nearby to lamas or something like that, disrespectfully kind of thing. And then also in the wrong manner. Now, and one of those things is considered to be anal sex, is not thought to be a good thing. So, it's up to you to decide what you consider, but this is one of the things that it says. And I think sometimes we become accustomed to things which become kind of fashionable in a way, but it doesn't mean to say they're necessarily good for you. So I think you have to make your own mind up about that, but that's one of the things that it says. Anyway, non-virtuous ways of acting with the body. So those are the three main ones. Then we'll move on to non-virtuous actions of speech. So the first one of those is lying, consciously lying. Selfishly, usually we lie in a selfish way, don't we? We often want to get something out of it, or just big ourselves up and exaggerate stuff. That's still lying. Or you're lying because you want to get something from somebody, and so you tell a lie about it. So it can be kind of joined with stealing, if you like. It's deceit, isn't it? So lying for selfish motivations. Again, you could be lying for an unselfish motivation. That would also carry some karma with it, but not as severe. And again, we'll go into that later when we talk about the different ramifications. But anyway, whatever kind of lying for self-gain, basically, for something that you're going to get out of it. And the second one of these four non-virtuous actions of speech is that of speaking divisively, to stir up things, to stir up discord between people or groups. I mean, we have something called hate speech now, don't we? Or you might speak divisively about another religion or something like that. And by the way, speech doesn't just mean what you're actually saying orally, but it can also be the written word. That's a form of speech, using words. Or it could be online. And that's possibly one of the most common ways of stirring up divisive speech is online, isn't it? And people can suffer tremendously from that. Speech can be so hurtful. It can cause people to kill themselves even. I mean, they can become so miserable that they could even kill themselves. So it can be really serious. And part of that, the third one is speaking harshly or offensively with the intention of hurting them. So we're not particularly talking here about just saying something without particularly meaning to, but actually meaning to be offensive to somebody, to hurt them, to wound them through your speech. Very, very, it's more than just unkind, it's really malicious. And of course, as well as hurting the other person, you're also hurting yourself, because you're habituating yourself to wrong ways of being, and that will carry karma. All of these things carry karma. We tend to always think of the victim of it, and so we should, but we are also one of the victims of it if we're the ones doing it. I think that's what needs to be understood. Now the fourth one it doesn't seem so serious, but if you think about it, it's the fourth one is speaking idly, chattering uselessly, mindlessly, just blah, 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 blah. Now, we're not talking here about, the social sort of interaction, oiling the wheels of social intercourse. Not, of course, you say good morning, how are you, and all of this stuff, and you inquire about people's health and that kind of thing. We're not talking about that. We're talking about gossiping and just saying any old rubbish, basically. Because if we're not mindful of what's coming out of our mouths, we can, even if we don't intend to, we can hurt people. And, at the very best, it's still just wasting this precious human life, isn't it? If we're just talking nonsense the whole time, then we're wasting this great opportunity that we have. So it can be very negative, too much of it. Okay, and so those are the 4 non-virtuous actions of speech. Then we're moving on to the 3 non-virtuous actions of mind. And as we said in the first part, this is where everything originates. So all the other ones tie into these. And so these are the actions, remember we're talking about here, is not the root of it. If you remember, the root of them is the ignorance, the desire, and the aversion. But you'll see how it ties in. So the first one is covetousness or envy. Envy of another's person or their wealth or their possessions. Could be their life in general, their wife or husband or boyfriend, girlfriend, or their career or the reputation. Whatever thing that is perceived as good that they have, one is envious of it, really the green-eyed monster of envy and jealousy. One is jealous of them. One wants it for oneself. Now, there's nothing really wrong with aspiring to have those things, but when you become eaten up with envy because somebody else has it, then that becomes very negative, because it can lead to doing all sorts of things because of that. For example, if you envy somebody's, let's say they have a very nice watch or something, and then it leads you to steal it, then you do the action of stealing, it starts in the mind. It starts with this envy, this wanting something, this desire. Goes back to the root cause of desire, doesn't it? I want that. That person's got it, I want it. I might take it. I might even kill them to get it. It can lead to all sorts of things. So that's the covetousness one. And the second one, which is very much related to that, is malice or ill will towards somebody, a kind of displeasure because somebody else has good fortune. So not only do you want what they've got, but you even hate them for having it. You really don't like them anymore because they've got this. Not only do you want it for yourself, but you don't want them to have it. You have ill will for them. You kind of wish them ill, Oh, I hope something happens that maybe they get it stolen from them, or that kind of really malicious ill will towards somebody. And that relates to the root of aversion, doesn't it? It becomes aversion for somebody. Somebody they're just minding their own business. They've got something, you want it. It makes you jealous. It makes you feel ill-disposed towards them. And then you can do something really bad because you wish them ill. And think about how that makes you feel. One doesn't feel happy in that state. If you're wishing ill on somebody, you're kind of eaten up with envy and malice. It becomes a bit of a hell realm, even just on earth. So then, again, you're the victim of it. You become, immersed in aversion and hatred, and it can be greed also, and aggression sometimes, So then the third one is that of wrong views. Now that can be many different things, but in terms of of Buddhism, of the Buddha's Dharma, so fundamental to the Buddha Dharma is following the main tenets of the Buddha's teachings. And so one of the main teachings is that of past and future lives. And really, in order to have any understanding of karma, you do need to take that on board. You don't need to pretend to take it on board, however. You do need to go into it for yourself and see, is it true or is it not true? At least have an open mind about it. So, but if you, just totally disregard it, say, no, I'm not even going to look into it, I disbelieve in it, past and future lives, I don't believe in karma, cause and effect. Well, essentially, you're saying you don't believe in the teachings of the Buddha. Now, you have every right to doubt, to investigate, to explore, but what it's saying here is just casting them aside. You don't know them, you don't want to know them. That's ignorance, isn't it? That's just pig-headed ignorance. Or not believing in the qualities of the Buddha, of the Dharma and the Sangha, the three jewels. If you don't believe in them, then you can't call yourself a Buddhist for sure. But if you at least have an open mind that you want to explore them, then that's okay. You need to learn. You need to study, of course, and meditate, reflect, all of these things. But So as long as you're doing that, then you haven't got wrong views. You're kind of got things on the back burner a little bit, but you are at least exploring them, and hopefully you will come to have the right views. And of course, you should also, one of the main teachings of the Buddha is to be tolerant of others, no matter what their views are, especially if they have another spiritual path or religion. You respect those, of course. But if you're a Buddhist, then you need to follow the teachings of the Buddha and the lineage. So, holding wrong views, if we have wrong views, that's really basically being mired in ignorance, and then you don't have any belief in karma, so you might act just, not thinking that it's going to have any repercussions, all of these things. So the results of all these actions, any of them, will be according to their severity. Some of them might be quite mild and not have a big result. Some of them will be really strong and have a very serious result. So we're going to look at that, and we're going to look at it in the following 4 ways. So, the 4 ways of examining actions, the karma, the actions, and their results. Now, we did just briefly touch on this in the previous session, but we need to go into it in a little bit more detail. So, whatever action that you do needs to have a basis, a motivation, an application, and a completion. So let's take the example of the first non-virtuous action that we spoke about, that of the body, which is killing. Very obvious, and I don't think anyone's going to argue with that one. So the basis for killing is there's somebody or something to be killed. let's say a person to be killed. So you have this person that you're going to kill. Now, the motivation could be multiple different types of motivation. It could be based on ignorance, that you don't even know it's wrong. You might be so deluded you don't even know it's wrong to kill somebody. It's possible. Or it might be through desire, because you might want something that they have, and the only way you can get it is to get rid of them. That's the way you're thinking. Or, because you desire their partner, their wife or their husband, and you just have to get them out of the way. Then you can have the object of your desire. This is not hopefully not frequent, but I remember seeing films about this even as a child. You want somebody so much, you just get rid of the husband or wife that's in the way of what you want, but you end up killing them. So anyway, whatever the motivation is, it could be just through anger. You're in a fight with them, and you end up, maybe you didn't set out to kill them, but you're having a fight, and it ends up that they die because of it. Then there's the application, actually doing it. Now again, if it's not a premeditated thing, then it might be something that you're having this fight because you had an argument and it's just things have snowballed and then you've ended up killing them. So you didn't set out with that motivation, but it's kind of snowballed into that. Or you might have totally planned it and you might have been planning it for months, and then you did it. So so that's the doing of it, and then there's the completion. So you've done it, the act is done, and now how do you feel about it? Are you glad? Yes, they're out of the way. Totally glad about it. Or you might feel, oh no, we were having this fight. I didn't mean for them to be killed. I didn't mean to kill them. Or it could have even been an accident that you've killed them. You could have been driving. Maybe you'd had too much to drink or something. Or you killed somebody, but without intending to. So that means that the intention wasn't there. The motivation wasn't there. Or the premeditation wasn't there. But you still did kill them. So there's still karmic consequences. If all four of the things are fully present, so you've got the person you want to kill, you've got premeditated motivation, you want to kill them, you do the killing, and then you're glad about it. So all of the things are there, then that is the worst kind of action, and it's going to produce the worst kind of karma, the worst kind of suffering, negative karma, I should say. Karma in itself is neutral, but negative karma is because of everything, all the negative side of it was there. So of course the result is going to be negative, not only for the victim, but for the perpetrator. Now, the consequences, well, for a start, our mind is going to be extremely corrupted by this. And the more negative acts that you do, the more negative your mindset becomes. It becomes a pattern of behavior. You become that negative person. And it becomes like a hellish state of mind. That's the way you become, because you're habituating to drink. When you do one bad thing, you become, it kind of gives you the habit to do another one and another one and another one, and it builds like that. That's why you get, with criminals, you get criminals that, become, what's the word, like professional criminals. That's not quite the phrase I was looking for, but what I mean, that it wasn't just a one-off, it becomes a way of life, or a way of death in this case. It becomes normalized almost. If you take a very extreme example, look at it like Nazi Germany. Not everybody woke up in the morning thinking, oh, right, how many people can we kill today? No, it happened incrementally, and it becomes normalized. Your mind state is so corrupted, so perverted, that you see it as normal. That's what can happen. So that's why we have to be so careful of our actions. And then, so, if we look at these 4 ways of seeing things, even if we've got away with it, some negative action in the worldly way, we may have got away with the killing and nobody knows it was us, and we think we've got off scot-free. In terms of the law, we may have got off scot-free. But in terms of karma, no. Because your mind has been affected, your whole continuum. So when you die, when your consciousness is going to be reborn, it will be in that negative state, because that's what you've cultivated in your life. You've cultivated negativity, so that's what continues. So that leads to rebirth in a hell realm. You have this hellish state of mind, you'll be reborn in the hell realm. Now, you might be a bit surprised to hear Buddhists talk about hell realms or heavenly realms or whatever. We're going to go into this much more in the 4th and last preliminary foundation, which is that of samsara. And in samsara it talks about all the different realms, including hell realms. But, at least for now we can understand that if you cultivate a negative way of being, then that is the mind state that is going to continue and lead to the type of rebirth that that seed is going to grow in that way. It's like if you plant an apple seed, you'll get an apple tree. If you plant an arsenic, I don't know what the plant is, but let's say deadly nightshade, you will get a deadly nightshade plant. You won't get a tomato plant. So, you reap what you sow, to put it in a very simple way. I mean, it's also might be that we killed, perhaps not quite so severely. We didn't perhaps mean to. It might have been partly by accident or out of passion. We didn't set out to do it. And then we might have remorse. We might think, I shouldn't have done that. What a horrible thing to do. I really regret that. And so then the consequences will be less severe. There will be consequences for sure. But if you genuinely regret it, then you will be reborn. Perhaps you could possibly be reborn if it was out of stupidity, out of ignorance, let's say. Then the chances are you could be reborn in the animal realm, which obviously it's not as positive as the human realm, but it's a step up from the hell realm, that's for sure. Or if it was through jealousy and things like that. But you again, if you had remorse or something, you might be born as a hungry ghost, something like that. Or if you genuinely, really regretted it and did your best to never do it again, then you could be reborn in the human realm, but maybe not in such very good circumstances. You might be born in difficult circumstances, but at least with the possibility of improving them, so a lot better. I mean, there are also instances that when somebody has killed and completely turned their life around. So like Milarepa, I think I mentioned Milarepa last time, but also Ashoka, the King Ashoka, Emperor Ashoka, who was a tyrant in ancient India, and who terrorized vast continents, not just one country, many lands. He terrorized people, and it said that on the last battle that he fought with all his soldiers caused the rivers to run red with blood. Thousands of people died. But then he began to see the error of his ways. Maybe when he saw the rivers of blood, I don't know, but I do know that he was meant to have met a Buddhist monk. So this was, maybe quite a few centuries after the Buddha. He saw this Buddhist monk, and he had some meeting with him, and he suddenly started to wake up to the fact that what he was doing was really bad in a big way. I mean, you can't imagine how big. But even then, he married a princess who was also a Buddhist, and he turned his life around, but completely. So in other words, all that strength and energy that he'd put into killing, he put into nurturing life and cultivating life. And not only that, it's said that, Siddha Rinpoche once said to me that without Emperor Ashoka, maybe Buddhism would not have even survived, because it was through him that Buddhism spread. He had so much territory. So now, instead of using it for ill, he used it to spread the word of the Buddha. And he put up, maybe, you've heard of Ashoka's columns, these great big stone columns with the edicts of the Buddha carved into them. You can see some of them, even now, they're usually in a bit of a ruined state, but they still exist. And so, it was through him that we had he built this shrine in Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha became enlightened. So he did a tremendous amount of good that actually equaled the bad that he'd done, even though the bad was so bad, the good was also so good. And so he had this genuine remorse, and he not only had that remorse, but he acted on that. He completely changed his mindset from being totally negative to being fully positive and helping many, many countless beings through the Buddha Dharma. So even the worst act can be overturned. And this we need to bear in mind, because none of us are free of having done bad things, are we? Hopefully not on the scale of Ashoka, but in the lives that we know about this life, none of us are free of having done bad things through ignorance or whatever. So, and we probably will carry on making some mistakes, but hopefully fewer. The more we learn, if we learn, and then if we regret them, and not only regret them, but if we try to do the opposite, if we cultivate the opposite, the good, the virtuous qualities, then we can make great progress. Because mainly people do negative stuff out of ignorance, out of not understanding what they're doing, not fully understanding what they're doing, and certainly not understanding the dire consequences for themselves as well as others. So this topic of karma is a great topic to learn, Even if you don't totally believe it, just go along with it, see what the positive side of it can be. If you knew the result it was going to have, would you still go ahead and just say something nasty to somebody or act in a malicious way, It'd make you think twice, wouldn't it? Okay, so now we're going to move on to, by the way, what we just talked about, the basis, the motivation, the application, the completion. We just took killing as a sample, an example. But you can apply it to any of the divisive speech or moral conduct or whatever other the ones that we talked about, the 10 different unvirtuous actions. You can and should apply all of these. But it's also to show you that to show us that it according to what's present, that's the result will be that strong or that weak or that severe or that mild, depending on how much of those are present and at what strength and how long they go on for, and all of this permutations. That's why karma is such a vast subject. Only a Buddha could know the full story, the full permutations. But at least if we have a reasonable understanding, it will help us to behave well. And if we behave well, we will be happier, and those that we come into contact with will also be happier. So for that, if for no other reason, is a good way to study karma. Okay, so now let's move on to the 10 virtuous actions. So basically, these are the opposite of the non-virtuous actions. So we'll do it in the same order. So instead of killing, not only do we not kill, but we also nurture life and protect life where possible. We try to protect life. We try to nurture life by caring for somebody or for an animal or for whatever. We try to protect it, make sure it doesn't come to any harm, not only with our own family, but anybody, or any animal that we encounter. If we see an animal suffering, we try to make it, take it out of suffering. Sometimes, you might be walking along the street and you see an insect or maybe a caterpillar, say, or something, and it's strayed into the path where there's going to be a car coming soon. So you might just take the caterpillar and put him in the bush. This is just a small thing. But, when we do a small good action, it gets us into the mind state of doing good actions. And everything we said about the negative actions, sort of promoting a negative mindset and hellish mindset, the same is true in reverse of the good action. So no good action is too small that we should say, oh, it's not worth doing, it's only a little caterpillar. Actually, I rescued a woodlouse today. I'm sort of laughing about it because it was in the bath, and what I usually do is I get something to scoop it up with, because they don't like to be scooped up, so you have to I got a little box to scoop it up with, and I was just getting it into the box when something else that was balanced on the bath fell over, and I thought, oh my God, have I killed the woodlouse? And I hadn't, but I couldn't see the woodlouse. Anyway, somehow or other, the woodlouse had got into the box. So, and it was probably in shock because it wasn't moving. And again, I still thought maybe I've inadvertently killed it. So I don't have the karma of killing it fully, but my idea was to save it. Anyway, I put it outside. And then sometime later, when I was leaving the house, I looked inside the box and it wasn't there. So I'm hoping that it just crawled off and lived a happy woodlice life. So anyway, something like that, and I remember once with Sister Rinpoche doing something very similar when he was on his way down to it was at Samuling, and it was my turn to be his guard, and so I was escorting him down the stairs. He was about to go into the shrine room where many people were waiting for him. I mean, it's a big deal, there's a couple of hundred people waiting for him, and his entourage with him, and I'm sort of walking with him. And then he stopped, and the stairs were made of kind of sort of marble, so they were kind of patterned, the pattern in the marble. It wasn't. But he'd seen something, and he picked something up, and because I was his guard, he went like, so I held my hand out, and he'd put a daddy long legs into my hand, and so I put it like this, and then when we got down there was a side door, and I sort of pushed it open with my elbow and managed to get the daddy long legs out. But then he was already, by that time he was in the shrine room at Samuling, and he'd paused to rescue this little insect on the way into his big deal. Well, not for him a big deal, but for us a big deal. So that's just little examples like that, But it taught me something. Hence the woodlice. So if we can do something like that, then it helps to inculcate this positive way of acting. So you're actually doing that action, not just thinking, oh, maybe I'll move the woodlice or whatever it is, but you actually do it, And of course it can be on a much bigger scale than that. If you have medical help expertise, you can help of course in many ways, or mentally helping people. In many different ways you can nurture and protect life. Then the second one is generosity. So it's the opposite of stealing. It's that of giving. Instead of taking, you're giving. And again, it can be giving. It doesn't have to be a material thing. It can be a material thing. You can give food or clothing, whatever you have, and or you can give your time. Somebody needs. And we're all busy these days and running around doing our thing. But if you can give a bit of time to somebody, that's really important. And or just having a little chat with somebody, can be a great help. And then the third one, which would correspond to, not the unvirtuous action, would be that one, that of misconduct, moral or sexual misconduct. So that would be keeping one's vows, whatever vows one has, to keep them. Don't just take them lightly, but to keep them wholeheartedly, and act as ethically or morally, if you like it, as you can. And any sort of infringements, you try not to repeat them. So you're acting, you're a person of your word, basically, isn't it? People will trust you because you're a person of your word. You do what you say. You don't just talk the talk, but you walk the walk. And then another one of speech is speaking truthfully. So instead of lying and cheating and deceiving, you speak the truth. And again, people will trust you for that. Of course, there could be instances where and this is where we start to see things like, the repercussions of different kinds of karma. For example, I'm thinking if you told a lie to save someone's life, that would be more important than speaking the truth in that instance. So although generally speaking one should speak the truth, suppose someone came in here and they're looking for someone that's here, and they've got an axe in their hand and they're going to kill this person, and they say, "Where did Marcus go?" Marcus is on the camera right now, so I say Marcus. So where did Marcus go? And I say, "He went that away," for knowing full well that actually he went that away. Well, I did that to save Marcus's life. So then that overrules the fact that it was a lie. I was lying to save Marcus. So it's you can't say that it's never good to lie, but for that kind of thing, when you're doing it for a good reason, then it's okay. And then another one of speech is instead of speaking divisively, splitting people up and making them argue with each other, you speak with words that are going to reconcile them, mediate and reconcile. Be friendly to people and show them the good in each other, if you can, or at least make a good atmosphere for people, for them to be reconciled. If you can, you don't have to preach them or anything like that, but if it's within your means and the time's right and everything, then you do your best to reconcile. And then another one, instead of speaking harshly and unkindly, that you speak kindly and thoughtfully. You try to be kind with your words and thoughtful. Not sugarcoating. I'm not talking about just flattery and sugarcoating things and being gushing, and that's horrible. But genuinely from your heart, being kind to that person. What would help them? What would help the situation? What would help that person? Or it could be an animal. You can talk to animals as well, can't you? And then the fourth one is, instead of just talking any old nonsense and gossiping seems like no big deal and we all do it, but it can be very negative. It starts off just maybe not so much. "Oh, did you see so-and-so doing so-and-so?" And then it's, "Oh yes, and not only that, but did you see, and then they did this, and then they did that," and then before you know it, you're blown up into a big negative thing. So not doing that. So instead of doing that, speaking in a worthwhile way, if you're going to talk just sort of neutrally, you could say then, but just something worthwhile, something interesting. Maybe you could learn something from the person, or you could teach something, not in a preachy way, but you're exchanging information in a useful way, in a pleasurable way as well. It's good. It makes you feel good. Okay, then we come to the virtuous actions of mind. So instead of coveting other people's property or possessions, that would be the unvirtuous answer. The virtuous side of that would be to rejoice in other people's happiness and good fortune. You don't have to be jealous of it. You can be happy about it. Somebody has something good or something nice, or they have a good career or whatever it is they have. So why not be happy for them? If you're happy for them, you are happy. so you feel a whole lot better than if you're, you're thinking, yeah, that's great. You can still aspire to that for yourself. Oh, look how they have that. Oh, that would be so nice. It must be so nice for them. Oh, it would be nice if I could, maybe if I work hard, I could also get that. But you're not wishing that they don't have it, you can be happy for them. When your team wins at football, or when somebody wins a race or something, you can be happy for them. And then also, the next one is, instead of having ill will or malice towards somebody or wishing ill on them, to want their benefit. You don't want something bad to happen to them. If possible, you would like something nice to happen to them, Even if it's somebody who's doing bad. So rather than, somebody who's stealing or whatever the negative act may be, instead of thinking, oh, they should be put away, or maybe they should be put away, but if your mindset is more towards kind of, I really hope that they can start to see the error of what they're doing, because it's making them unhappy as well as other people. I really hope that they will one day see what they're doing and be able to learn from it. So then that's wishing for their benefit, isn't it? Not in a revengeful kind of way, but hoping that they will see the light and maybe doing something to help them see the light. Again, without preaching, because that wouldn't work probably. But I suppose the best thing is by example. That's the best teaching. And then instead of having wrong views, so of course if you aspire to be Buddhist and follow the Buddhist teachings, then you follow the Buddhist teachings. And if you're following the Buddhist teachings, all the goodness will come from that. Because we're not following the Buddhist teachings to pass an exam in Buddhism. We're doing it to have a good life, in this life, maybe in the lives to come. Depends how far ahead we're looking, or at least to improve this life at the very least, and not only for ourselves, but for the benefit of others. That's the bodhicitta motivation. So, of course, when we have that kind of aspiration, we will definitely be in a happier state of mind, because we're thinking positively. So, thinking in this way, it will bring good results. It will, like we said, it's planting a positive seed. It will have positive results. And the strength of them depends on how much effort we put into it, how strong our actions are for the good. If it's just a little bit, then they'll have smaller results. If it's a lot of effort and diligence and appreciation and, really enthusiastic about, the Buddha's way of life, then that will have. Actually, the best result of all is to become self-liberated for the benefit of all beings. So that's what we're talking about, is living to our full potential. And of course it's not just like that. It depends on how we live our lives. Plural. So. And also, at the side of doing our best to be good Buddhists, that we also, part of that is to tolerate and to respect others' views. We don't have to espouse them, but we tolerate and we respect their right to have them, and we don't denigrate them. Different stroke for different folk, As long as it's not harming them anyway. And so, you can do, just as you can do negative acts with a positive motivation, like we mentioned about lying, but for a good reason, so that somebody doesn't get killed or something like that, then also you can also do positive acts, but with a negative motivation. So what you do might be quite good, but your motivation may not be clear, may not be that pure. For example, if maybe you hear about some situation where people are in great need. It could be some charity set up to deal with a situation, famine, let's say, or any negative situation, and so you decide to give whatever you can afford to alleviate that situation. So if you do that, then of course that's a good motivation, a good action, and it's good all the way around. Hopefully it will have a good effect. But if you do it for prestige, if you kind of make a boast about it a bit, or you make sure everybody knows that you're doing this. Oh yes, I got through this thing through the post. I just thought I'd give a few £1,000s, and you're boasting about it. Well, so that lessens it. You're still doing it, so you can't say it's totally negative. There's still maybe some good outcome of it, but it's not as pure as if you just did it, whether somebody knows about it or they don't know about it. So you're doing it a little bit kind of for your own good as well, for your own prestige. It's a bit tainted, let's say. So the karma from that will be still have some positive, because you've done something good, which you've helped alleviate people's hunger, but your own karma won't be quite as good because of the deceit, or the kind of selfish motivation, partly selfish, not wholly selfish, but partly selfish. So when we're doing something good, it shouldn't have that selfish aspect to it to be fully complete. So you can see there's subtleties about this. Or you could see somebody in the street and you make a big show of giving them some money or whatever, or so that again it's a bit tainted. Whereas or you could even just throw it down, and like look down on them a little bit, but you still gave them something. So that's again, it's tainted. Or you could give it kindly and maybe have a few words with them and feel sorry, and it could happen to anybody, and if you have that kind of motivation, then that's pure. So you can see there's many different gradations that can happen. And then, of course, there are neutral acts, which are neither particularly negative or particularly positive. They're just somewhere in the middle. But they might be a bit pointless, a bit of a waste of our time, of our precious human life. So, of course, we're bound to be doing things that are just, neither particularly positive or negative as we go about our daily life, and we don't want to get neurotic about that. But if it becomes, really, that's nearly all we're doing, is just pointlessly get up, eat, sleep, shit, go back to bed, doing that. It's just a waste of our life, isn't it? We may not be killing people, but we're not particularly helping them either. So it's just a waste of our precious human life, this opportunity that we have. So we need to apply mindful awareness. Because then, even a neutral act, even a quite worldly, just mundane act, can become very positive, can become virtuous. For example, when you eat, so instead of just golloping down your food, maybe you just take a moment and sometimes you can say a prayer, or you can inwardly say a prayer. You don't have to make a big show of it. If you're in a restaurant or something, you don't have to make this, you don't have to do that. But inwardly you can just pray or offer it to the three jewels. Inwardly, you're not actually physically offering it, but in your mind you're offering the first food to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. And also you can think of, may all beings who are hungry now, may they not carry on being hungry. May they find food. May they find better fortune. If you think in that way, so then you're imbuing even the same old act of eating your meal, but it has a different meaning. It has a different weight to it. It becomes more meaningful, and you become more aware. So you're building up, you're cultivating awareness. So even just what could be just a meaningless act, mundane act, neutral act, becomes a positive act because of your mindset. So yeah, and that's the same, when you get anything good, and somebody, perhaps you get a new coat or whatever, you can mentally offer it to the three jewels. Now you don't have to go running after your alarm and say, here's my coat. It doesn't mean that. It means, well, you could do that, but you could also just mentally offer it, or have this thing of, may no beings be without decent clothing, may they not just have rags or whatever. You're cultivating that positive mind, a virtuous mind. And, we're taking care not to commit even a small bad action, like killing a fly because a fly's on there, So what? The fly has got as much right to live as you have, And if you do inadvertently kill something, because of course, when we're walking on the grass, we're going to be killing some animals, so we do our best not to. Again, we don't want to become neurotic, we don't do this or that, but, we have this mindful nurturing in our mind, to be sorry for any creatures that we do inadvertently kill, that we hope they get a better rebirth, If you accidentally kill, you walk on something, or so you're generally sorry about it, and you have this kind of little prayer for them, even if you don't put it into words. So this way we are still cultivating good qualities. And then when we cultivate good qualities, they have results. That all has results. Nothing we do won't have a result, whether it's a good result or a bad result. So in this instance, we're talking about good results. So, for example, there's what we call the 8 qualities of the higher states, which result from good actions. So, for example, because we've helped other beings in whatever way we can, then we will have longevity. We tend to have a long life. Because we've made offerings of lamps or whatever it is we've offered, we will have a pleasing appearance. Pleasing, it doesn't mean to say that we're, beauty queen or film stars or whatever, but a pleasing appearance. Because we've paid homage to the Guru, to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the Gurus, then we will be born into a good family. So in our future lives, we'll be born into good conditions, a good family, caring family. And because we've been generous with whatever we've had, we'll be born into a good fortune. Doesn't mean to say vastly rich, but good fortune, whether it's talking about monetary or good conditions, Because we've spoken constructively and kindly, then our speech in our next lives and the one that we're in will become more respected. People will listen. Because we've made pure offerings, this doesn't mean to say that you have to be wealthy to make the vast offerings. It's whatever you can afford. You can make a little offering out of wood. It doesn't have to be gold, or maybe it's whatever you have. If it's pure, that's the thing. Or you can make a vast offering. If it's impure, you won't get the result. But even a small offering, a flower offered with a pure heart, then because you've made pure offerings, you will have power and influence in your lives to come. And Now this one is a little contentious because it talks about protecting, because we protected beings from castration. I don't think this happens quite so much these days. I suppose with pets it does, maybe. But anyway, if you protect, because I think even with people, certainly in the medieval times, they used to castrate people to be singers, contraltos or sopranos or whatever. Castrati they were called in Italy, weren't they? To have a certain kind of singing voice. Crazy, but there you go. That's what they did. Or to look after the harem for concubines, that kind of thing. That castrating people is not a good idea, but that's what happened, and maybe it still does in some places. Anyway, if you protect people from that, then if you wish to have a male form in your next rebirth, then you can have a male life. And again, I think that is partly because of the tough lives that women used to have, and in some places still do. Of course, you might want to have a female life, so then that's fine. And then, because of helping others freely through the Dharma, through whatever Dharma you have, for whatever truth whatever teachings you can give, or just helping them in whatever way, freely, just giving whatever then that will give you strength in all areas, because you've helped beings, and because you've been doing any of these things, these meritorious actions, without bothering about whether other people are aware of them, whether they're watching or not watching. You've done them purely. You've kept whatever vows you have, and also that you've coupled these good actions with good states of mind, with one-pointed meditation, with reflection and meditation. So you know what you're doing. You're building this awareness, and so. If you have that, then not only will you have the 8 qualities of the higher states of sort of a good life to come, but if it's also coupled with the meditation and renunciation, renouncing what's negative, what's going to lead to suffering, then the goal can become even bigger. Then it can lead to insight, and then through the meditation and cultivating awareness, then it leads to insight and ultimately to full enlightenment, to liberation. You realize your Buddha nature, which we all have, exactly the same potential as the Buddha. So when all this is present, then you have the causes and conditions to realize your Buddha nature fully. So we need to examine what do we actually want. We need to know what our goal is. Do we just want rebirth in a higher stage? Like next time we get reborn, do we just want to have the good fortune and nice surroundings and all of this? But we're still in samsara, which is we will go into when we go into more detail when it comes to that next session. But basically, samsara is the cycle it's a cycle which is full of suffering. Not only suffering, but that's one of its chief attributes, let's say. So, but you can have a good life, relatively good life within that. So that's what we call a higher state, a decent human life. Or do we really long for liberation, for enlightenment, for realizing our Buddha nature? Is that what our goal is? And then that's liberated from the cycle of samsara, because as long as you're in samsara, there will definitely be suffering. And if we have, so then we have this idea to renounce samsara, because we see through it. We see through the defects of samsara, even though there are some good things and things that we like. By and large, it's full of suffering. And so once we've really got that understanding, then that leads to a sense of renunciation. And, we've had enough of that. Let's move on from that. And so that's why we might take vows and cultivate bodhicitta. So when we have not only the sense of renunciation, but also we want to attain liberation, not only for ourselves, but for the benefit of all beings, because we don't want them to be trapped in this samsaric wheel of suffering. Then our motivation is wide, it's huge, it's vast. We're cultivating compassion for all beings. So that's the full goal, So, but it depends where we are. We have to be honest with ourselves. What are we aiming for here? Anyway, whatever our goal is, if we want to sum up karma, cause and effect, we can say that happiness is the result of virtue, and suffering is the result of non-virtue. And that is immutable. So that is unmistaken. But we have to know that for ourselves. So therefore, we have to study all the things that we've been talking about. Now I think I've been talking for too long. So all of these things you need to look at, but for now I think let's just have a rest from the words and rest in awareness. So we're not just going to rest as in fall asleep, but we're going to sharpen our awareness. But we're first of all resting and just sitting in a good posture. Because that helps our state of mind when our body's in a good posture. And let's just relax everything while maintaining the posture. Think of growing up towards the sky. Imagine your head growing up, your whole body, from the base of your spine, up through your spine and your neck, through your head, and the crown of your head reaching for the sky, so it's stretching out the spine, but in a holistic way, as if you're growing up like a tree growing towards the light. At the same time, your lower body is kind of rooting into the earth. So you're connecting heaven and earth. Relax your belly, allow it to fill and empty with each breath. Obviously your lungs and your diaphragm, but also your belly. So everything's relaxed and opening and expanding with each in-breath and deflating as you breathe out, letting go of any stale air and stale energy with each out-breath. Taking in the fresh air, fresh energy with each in-breath. So we'll count 21 breaths. Inwardly, you don't say them out loud. 21 cycles of in and out. Taking in, feeling the breath around your whole body, and letting go of any tension as you breathe out. We count that as 1. And we'll go all the way to 21. And when you reach 21, just let go of the counting, maintaining good posture, awareness, mind and body resting together. And then just allow any thoughts that arise to turn them into whatever we've been talking about, the topics we've been discussing. Whatever aspect, you don't need to at this point think of the list of things that we went through, the numbers or anything like that, but just whatever thoughts arise, turn them in the direction of karma, cause and effect, and whatever understanding or thoughts you might have had on it, just explore them, reflect. Is it true? Is it not true? How does it work in your life? Remembering that karma means actions. When you've done negative actions, even small ones, how does that make you feel? Or when you've done positive actions, even small ones, how does that make you feel? And letting go, resting the mind again in spacious awareness. Limitless, like space. So the topic of karma is very vast and profound, which is why we've only really sort of skittered along the surface of it. Now you can really work with it. But the reason why we didn't meditate so long is because it is such a huge topic. And even looking at it fairly superficially takes time, but now you've got the wherewithal to really explore it for yourselves. And I think maybe I should give you the list of the way to do that. There's you can break it into 4 weeks, or 5 days, or 7 days, whatever. So to recap the topics that you can use for study and meditation. So the first week is to reflect and meditate on non-virtuous acts of body and speech. So just the ones of body and speech. Remember, there were 3 of body and 4 of speech. And then the second week, reflect and meditate on non-virtuous states of mind. And there are 3 basic ones of those, but they're very profound, so you need to spend at least a week doing that. And then the third week, reflect on the 10 virtuous actions. The 10 virtuous actions as a cause for rebirth in higher realms. The higher realms within samsara, that is. So like a good human rebirth, that kind of thing. And then the fourth week, reflect on the 10 virtues being the causes for liberation. So the virtues look the same, but they have a different motivation, and so they become a cause for liberation. Okay? And of course, it's as well as your sessions that you do, which with you do we start with the prayers, and then we do the root text, and then we meditate on whichever topic we're studying at that moment. But as well as that, and then we say the dedication at the end, and then that's your session. But outside of session time, when you're just going about your daily life, because this is what it's all about, is our life, isn't it? It's our daily life. We have no other life. So this is what it's for. So you can, you don't have to confine it only to your sort of sessions, but as you go about your daily life and see how it works, then you really learn, then you really start to learn. And of course, the reason why it's so important to examine our faults, where we've gone wrong, where we're going wrong, where we might go wrong, is not because we're beating ourselves up, it's because we want to learn from the situation. And we can't learn if we don't know where we're going wrong. So we need to check it out with the motivation to become a better person, not just for ourselves, but for all beings, and to become eventually fully liberated. Again, for the benefit of all beings, so we can have this huge motivation. But we have to go through what needs correcting, don't we? So look at your own flaws, not those of other people. Let them take care of their flaws. You take care. We all have to look at our own flaws. And try to see other beings as pure, even if they may do wrong things. That we can generate compassion for them. At least, if they can see they're making mistakes, then maybe they don't understand karma and they don't know what's coming. So that way we can see them in a compassionate light. So so I think that's enough for today. Well, I just wish you lots of good fortune with your studies and with everything that you do with the Buddha Dharma, and that all the results that you have will be according to that, won't they? So I wish the best for you, but really everything is it's always in our own hands. It's in your hands, my hands. Okay, so now we'll finish with dedicating the merit of our practice to all sentient beings. Through the wholesomeness of this practice, may all the mental defilements be overcome, and may all beings be liberated from the ocean of samsara, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. O sanam de tamche zikpani, topne nye pedranam pamchene, jigana chi balabdrukpai, sipe sole droar droar sho. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you for the last of the 4 preliminaries, that of samsara. But meanwhile, really give your best attention to karma, cause and effect, and be safe, be well, be happy.